Welcome to the Imperial Truth. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are going to do part two of our Science of Slaughter series. And as promised in some previous videos, we are going to talk about the Land Raider problem. So let's get in here and we'll talk about sort of the mathematics of Armor 14 vehicles in Horse Heresy 3rd edition. A little bit of background before we get in here. If you're someone who is around for 2nd edition, you will be aware of the fact that we had a problem in 2nd edition with dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts were very, very durable. They usually had a 2+ save, a 5+ invuln, a bucket of wounds, like 7 wounds, toughness 7. And this made them really difficult to kill because they had a lot of wounds, and most guns, all guns, were 1 damage. And so while you could technically one-shot a vehicle, you could not one-shot a dreadnought. And so they became, and they were priced pretty cheaply. And so they became a little bit of a problem. And if you were going to bring lots of dreadnoughts, it was usually custom to ask your opponent or talk to your opponent about it. And in some events, they would limit the number of dreadnoughts that you could bring. And this brings us to Horus Heresy 3rd edition, where dreadnoughts aren't nearly as durable because there are lots of multiple damage weapons. However, suddenly some vehicles are really, really problematically difficult to kill. And let's talk about these vehicles. So in Horus Heresy 3rd edition, we rolled a hit. So you take your hit rolls for your weapons. You will inevitably have some misses in there. We are going to take each hit and then we roll 1d6 plus our weapon strength. And we're going to compare that to the armor value of the facing that we're hitting the vehicle on. So if we are in the back arc of the vehicle, we will hit the rear armor. If we're in the side arc, we'll hit the side armor and whatnot. As we're going to find out real quickly, this doesn't really matter for Land Raiders or Spartans. If we exceed the number of the armor value of that facing, then we will remove X number of hull points where X is equal to our weapon damage. If we equal our armor value of said facing, then we score what's called a glancing hit and we roll a chart. And if we on a chart, and there are 3 options, and if we happen to get the same result more than once, so if a vehicle's already stunned and we hit it with a weapon that also stuns it, hit it with a glancing shot that also stuns it, we will remove a hull point instead. So we don't remove the weapon damage, we just take away 1 hull point. So in this way, we've sort of simultaneously made vehicles a little bit less impactful because it's easier to apply things like stunning or pinning or suppressed to a vehicle. Some of those are a little bit more important than others. But in the other side, we no longer have that chart that you roll on like we did in 2nd edition, where you roll a d6, and I think on a 6+, your vehicle just explodes and it's gone. And so you could, in theory, shoot 1 las cannon at a tank, and if you got very lucky, you could destroy that tank with 1 shot, which was kind of fun, which is kind of cinematic. I think I've referenced it in the previous video that I wish we still had that. I like that granularity. I like that sort of detail to the game. But yeah, it does dramatically change the way our vehicles behave in Horse Heresy 3rd edition. So let's talk about the vehicles that are the problem. And these are our Land Raider chassis, so things like the Achilles, the Carrier, and the Explorator, and the Spartan chassis, which is our Spartan, our Kratos. I think there's some other vehicles that I'm missing in here, but basically anything that's built on a Land Raider or on a Spartan. And both of these vehicles are AV-14 on all sides, which to my knowledge is the highest AV in the game. We can't go higher than that, thank God. And a Land Raider has 8 hull points, which is a lot, but a Spartan has 10 hull points, which is obviously more. And these numbers are going to be part of the problem as well. This means that at the very, very, very best, you cannot penetrate these vehicles with anything less than strength 9 weapons. Strength 9 weapon would glance on a 5, because 9 plus 14 9 plus 5 is 14, and they would penetrate on a 6, because 9 plus 6 is 15. If we have this rule called armor bane, which is a slightly special rule for some weapons, and the focus of today's video, because of we're focusing from a sort of mechanicum standpoint with a lot of this stuff, then our glancing hits count as penetrating hits, which is nice. It gives us a little bit more ability to penetrate these vehicles and bring them down. Spoiler alert, it doesn't really matter. So for division or multiplication, for that matter, order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we organize these. And so we can sort of organize our maths like this, where we take the number of hull points of a vehicle divided by whatever percentage of shots are going to penetrate that vehicle, divided by our ballistic skill percent, so whatever percentage of shots are going to hit that vehicle. So if we had a ballistic skill of 4, we are going to be hitting on a 3+, which means 66.7% of our hits are going to go through. And then we can divide this by our damage, and this will give us the number of shots. We're going to find out that math doesn't quite work perfectly, but mostly the number of shots that we need to penetrate a vehicle or to destroy a vehicle. Okay, and so in this, number of hull points is our number of hull points. AP percent is I'm putting this in an Excel spreadsheet, so if this seems messy, that's why. It's 7 minus essentially your armor value plus 1, and then minus your weapon strength, and then we divide all that by 6. If you're armor bane, then we are going to remove the +1 from this equation, because we can glancing hits count too. And then our ballistic skill is just 7 minus the ballistic skill divided by 6, which works out mostly. I think it fails at ballistic skill 6, but it doesn't matter. We're not focusing on that either. And then our weapon damage is just our weapon damage. So throw this into an Excel sheet, toss in some numbers, and play with it, and see what we can come up with, and how we can model these things. So we start with our las cannons. We're starting with las cannons because they are armor bane. They are that strength 9 threshold for us. They're damage 1 usually, though they have heavy D. So if we don't move, the damage goes to 2, which is good. And they have that armor bane rule, which means that we are we're not wounding. We're penetrating our armor on a 5 or a 6, which is good. That's where we want to be. If our unit is moving, so we're going to assume that we're playing with a unit of Space Marine, I don't know what they're called, the Devastator equivalents, the heavy weapon squads, I think is what maybe they're called. So we have 10 guys, 9 guys with las cannons. I don't think the sergeant gets a las cannon, and they're going to walk around and shoot things. If we walk and shoot, we'll be at damage 1, and that means that mathematically we'll need 36 shots for a Land Raider to destroy it, and 45 for a Spartan to destroy it. And again, if you're just wondering how the math works, we're going to shoot 36 times. 2/3 of those shots, or 24 of those shots, are going to hit our Land Raider. 1/3 of those shots, so about 8 of those shots, are going to go through the Land Raider's armor, and so that gives us 8 wounds on our Land Raider, or 8 hull points on our Land Raider. The Spartan runs pretty much the same, with 45 shots being needed for our Spartan. If we stand still, those numbers obviously are divided in 2, because our damage doubles from damage 1 to damage 2 thanks to our heavy. Hang on real quick. I realized I said it doubles. Mathematically it doubles, but heavy adds 1 to the stat. So if we were a damage 2 las cannon, we had heavy D, we'd go to 3, not 4, just to be clear about that, so that nobody's in the comments like, no, ordnance is what doubles. I'm aware. All right, so we've got that. Now, this is all well and good. We can see right away that there's a problem in that my 10-man heavy weapon squad can shoot for a whole game against a Land Raider and just barely kill it on turn 4, which is not optimal, right? We've got basically a whole game's worth of actions from this Land Raider. And for a Spartan, it's even worse, right? On average, our 10-man weapons team never kills our Spartan. And in fact, I tried to do the maths on what it would take for a 10-man squad to kill a Spartan or a Land Raider in one shooting phase. And I can assure you, sorry, I can assure you that it's like 1,000th of a%. It's an incredibly small percentage, if I did the math right, to make this happen. It's basically impossible to one round them with a unit. And this is additionally difficult or additionally problematic because usually our Spartans or Land Raiders aren't there to do work. They're not there to dish out a lot of damage. They're there to deliver a unit of Terminators or a command squad, or in third edition, you could put assault Marines in there and have them jump out with their jump packs like a really crazy distance. And so usually you are going to want to kill this thing on turn 1 or 2. If you go first, you absolutely have to kill your opponent's Land Raiders by turn 2, or they've done their job. So you do need to sort of be aware that there's a timer to this, and investing energy to try to kill the Land Raider doesn't do you much good if you kill it on turn 4 after it's already delivered 10, or not, 10 Marines or 5 Terminators to you that are now in your line. Especially again, if we're talking about coming at this from a Mechanicum perspective, we really don't want Terminators anywhere near our lines. We just don't have a lot of AP2 options. We don't have a lot of ways to kill multi-wound models very easily. Terminators are a problem, and if they're in melee with your units, it's going badly. So we really need to kill these on turn 1, maybe turn 2, or status effect them and keep them from moving, or do something that is going to keep them away from our lines. Letting them get into our lines is bad. But this all gets far, far worse if your opponent uses smoke. So smoke screen is a shooting phase reaction, costs 1 reaction point, gives you a 5-up shroud damage mitigation save for the rest of the shooting phase. So it's not just against those attacks like it was in, I think shrouding in second edition was just one set of attacks. This is the whole rest of the round. So I'm going to shoot your Land Raider with my unit of 10 guys with las cannons. Oh no, you shrouded. I might as well not shoot anything else into that Land Raider for the rest of the turn because I'm not going to do damage. All right. So if we shroud, that means that suddenly even those stationary shots go to 27 shots, which just puts it out of range. We're just not going to be able to kill a Land Raider. I guess if you had 3 units of heavy weapons Marines that had all not moved, you could reasonably kill a Land Raider in one shooting phase. If we're moving, if I have to move my heavy weapon squad to get into line of sight of the Land Raider, that goes to 54 shots. This is just not reasonable. On the flip side, if you're an Astartes player, you should always save an RP to a smoke screen with your Land Raiders, because it basically takes the option of killing them completely off the table. I mean, your opponent probably wasn't going to kill it, but at this point, it's impossible. And obviously, these numbers get a lot worse for our Spartans. So, short story here, probably don't shoot Land Raiders with las cannons at all. And even if you do, if your opponent smoke screens, just be done. It's just not worth investing any energy into that. Now, multi-meltas are in the lore a very good way to kill vehicles. And in second edition, were a pretty good way to kill vehicles because they had AP1, and that added damage or added to your dice roll to see if you blew up a vehicle. And they're very good at penetrating. They armor bane in second edition was 2d6 to penetrate the armor, so you were very likely to penetrate. In third edition, not so much. Poor multi-meltas and all those guys that are armed with multi-melters, including my Thalax. Multi-melters are strength 8, which means that we are glancing a Land Raider on 6s. That's not good. That means that statistically, unless you're in Melta range, you cannot kill a Land Raider with a unit of multi-meltas. It really doesn't matter how many you have. Statistically, it's just going to be really difficult because you have to roll a 6, we have to roll a hit, then you have to roll a 6, then you roll a d3 and apply a status, right? And you have to roll that same status again 8 more times, which is just not going to happen. They are damage 3 if they get through. They're heavy strength, so if you don't move, You get +1 strength, getting you a 9, which means that a 6 wood pen, which is probably a trap, but could be used in reaction shooting. So just keep in mind that reaction shooting is a thing, and if you are shooting as a reaction, you count as being stationary. Melta 8, which means that if you are within 8 inches of your target, you get armor bane and your damage doubles. So you get the armor bane rule, which we already discussed, and your damage goes to 6. So if I drop in a unit of Thalax with all multi-meltas behind a Land Raider or beside a Land Raider, and I take my shots, so I count as moving, I still need to shoot the Land Raider 12 times to destroy it on average. If I shoot it with at a Spartan, it's 15 times. If it's stationary, if I'm stationary or from reaction shooting, it's only 6, or it's 7 for a Spartan, except that that's not actually the way the math works. So if you are furiously typing in the comments to correct me, I'm aware of this. This is the limitation of our data set. So multi-melters in melter range are damage 6. That means we need 2 shots to kill a Land Raider, right? We're not counting by 1s or 2s, we're counting by 6s. And so it's 6, one multi-melter going through does 6 damage, but we need 8 damage to kill our Land Raider, or 10 damage to kill our Spartan, which means we need 2 shots to go through regardless. So interestingly, it's just as easy to kill a Spartan with multi-meltas as it is to kill a Land Raider, but it's harder than our previous data to kill both. So we actually need 2 shots to successfully go through. We're going to pen them 0.167% of the time, or 0.167 of the time, 16.7% of the time. And we're going to, or I'll just say it that way, and we're going to hit 66.7% of the time because Thalax are ballistic skill 4. So that means we need 18 shots. So in order to kill 1 Land Raider with multi-meltas, I need 2 units of 9 Thalax, all with multi-meltas to make this happen. So I either need to have them move within range so I can move up my 10 inches and get within 8. So that Land Raider has to be within 18 inches of my guys at the start of the turn. Probably not a good look if you're already that close, because you've probably already disembarked the Terminators. Or I can deep strike 9 Thalax in 1 turn and do half the damage, or 6 damage, and then I can deep strike the second unit in the next turn and kill him. It's just not a good look. It's not probably not going to happen. This is a problem. It's why we're having this conversation about how difficult these are to try and destroy. So in truth, if we're moving, we need about 18 shots for the Land Raider or the Spartan. But if we're stationary, it's only 9 shots for the Land Raider or the Spartan. So if you could engineer a situation where you can reaction shoot into a Land Raider, then you're probably going to kill it. But still, this is the average. So you're also likely to come up a little bit short on these. And I just don't think it's worth the investment. That's a lot of points. I'm not, let's see, it's 180 points for 6. Right? But no, it's more than that. It's 210 points for 6 Thalax with multi-meltas. So I'm failing at the math right now, but it's a lot of points considering that a Land Raider is about 260 points. You're going to need at least that many points with Thalax to be able to kill this thing. Yeah. So let's put those aside. Let's look at the other big gun in our faction, which is the Solix Heavy Laws. This is on the Thanatar Cavis model. No, Calyx model. Sorry. I think Calyx. I'm science background. So when I think Calyx, I think about flower, and that makes me think about the plasma mortar. But it's backwards. So this is the Calyx. So on this one, the Solix Heavy Las is strength 10, it's damage 2, it's ordnance D. So if you don't move, it goes to damage 4, which is actually really nice. It has 2 shots each time it shoots, and it's armor bane on its weapon. Now, armor bane means that we would normally penetrate on a 5 or a 6, but now we penetrate on a 4, 5, or a 6. So if our Solix Heavy Las is moving, so it's not getting its ordnance, we need 12 shots to drop a Land Raider and 15 to drop a Spartan. The math works because we're counting by 2s here. And just like with our multi-melters, the damage 4 is a little bit weird, but we need 6 shots versus our Land Raider if we're stationary. So we're going to get that 4 damage shot, and 9 if we're trying to drop a Spartan. Now, again, we're shooting twice with each gun, and these guys are like 245 points each. So in truth, we're probably, again, not going to kill a Land Raider very easily with one round of shooting, unless we have like 5 or 6 of these guys, which I just don't think is feasible to be destroying Land Raiders with. If we do the maths, so if we give it 4 ballistic skill 4, or we can give it 5 with guide, so we can bump that a little bit. We're going to assume our firepower 2 on the heavy las and damage 4 because we're stationary. So your opponent was a complete idiot. They drove up their Land Raider up the board, assuming that you can't kill it. They're now within line of sight of your Thanatar Calyx. You've got a tech priest nearby, so you can drop a guide on it for an extra ballistic skill. If we need to. So let's figure out what the percentages are that we would actually kill that 8 wound or 8 hull point Land Raider in just one shooting phase. So the way the maths works, if you're not a maths person or stats person, we can just take that 33% chance that we have to do 4 damage, and we can multiply those together. So our 33% chance is coming from we would hit normally 66.7% of the time with ballistic skill 4, but only half of the shots that we are going to hit with are going to go through the armor, because we need a 4 up for the armor. So we can just divide that in 2. So that 66.7 goes to 33.3% chance. And then the chance to get a second 33.3% chance after the first is just multiplying them together, right? So if we do that maths, it works out to about an 11% chance to kill a Land Raider in one shooting phase, which is not terrible. This isn't las cannon or multi-melter bad, but it isn't great for a dedicated, what's supposed to be a dedicated anti-tank gun. If we put guide on there, so we go to an 83% chance to hit, that's going to give us a 17% chance to drop the Land Raider, which is not quite 1 in 5, but is pretty good. That's not bad. I'll take a 1 in 5 chance to kill a Land Raider in most cases. But keep in mind that once you declare the shots, your opponent can choose to use Smokescreen. And Smokescreen drops our 11% chance down to 4.9% chance. I didn't do the maths on the guide one, but it's going to be a little bit higher, but it's going to be still below 10%. And so this is the problem here, is that you can't kill a Land Raider. You just can't do it. I mean, if you dedicate everything in your army to it as a Mechanicum player, you can probably figure out a way to do it. But now you're dedicating all your army to kill something that's a transport, not a tank. They're not out there doing a lot of damage. Yeah. So in terms of our weapons that have even the capacity to scratch the paint on a Land Raider, there aren't a lot. I've listed them here just so we can see them. But I again, we'll have a conversation about it in a minute. So the plasma fusel, which is on the Krios Venator, that's a strength 9 gun. So on 6s, it's going to pen. It is damage 3, which is pretty good. So you only need 3 shots to get through against a Land Raider, but it's firepower 2. So I think it has ordnance firepower. So if you stay still, you would get 4 shots. So in theory, you could do it, but statistically, it's not very likely at all that you could drop it with a plasma fusel. We talked about the Solix Heavy Las on the Thanatar. Multi-meltas and melta guns are both decent if you can get within melta range. And we do have access to those. I just don't think meltas are going to be good against vehicles, because that 8-inch range for Melta it just kills you. It used to be half range. So again, if we think about the death of multi-meltas in third edition, we're going from a 12-inch Melta range to an 8-inch Melta range. We're going from penetrating vehicles on 2d6, which is going to give us, I'm trying to do the math, against armor 14. That means we need to roll a 7, which is, as we saw in a previous video, previous math video, is about 58% of the chance that you're going to get that. Like they're just really likely to do damage and maybe kill a vehicle. And in third edition, they're just not. They just do not have the punch to successfully kill vehicles. Interestingly, hunter killer missiles aren't terrible. They have armor bane. They are damage 3. They're strength 9. We can put 2 hunter killers on all of our vehicles, including Krios now, which is very interesting. It's a lot of points of investment, but like, it's maybe worth looking at, is popping some hunter killer missiles on some tanks and just driving around and popping them off at the enemy tank. You can split shots now, so you could put your hunter killers in and shoot your other guns at something else. And yeah, it's worth considering, although I think it's still a trap. The Voltarox missile launcher is strength 10. It's damage 2, it's firepower 2. So that's not a bad option to be shooting at these tanks. But again, not going to kill a Land Raider in one round. But the despoiler cannon has some guts to it. I think this is on the Defiler maybe. But it's strength 10, damage 3, firepower 1, armor bane, which is good. If you're playing dark mech, this is probably not bad to be using. Although I think the chassis it's on is really expensive. So yeah. An honorable mention here that we're going to get into in a minute are Melta bombs, which are strength 9, armor damage 4, armor bane. So if we put Melta bombs on our Thalax, which are strength 9, damage 4, armor bane, they have the detonation rule, which means you can only use them against vehicles, and you only get 1 attack each, I think still. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We need 7.2 attacks to get through on a Land Raider to kill it, and 10.8 attacks on a Spartan to kill it, which is not terrible. We can do that. We can play with those numbers and potentially get those through. And maybe, if you have a unit of Thalax that have Melta guns and Melta bombs, they could go hunt Land Raiders and be pretty efficient with that, because you wouldn't necessarily need to kill the Land Raider with shooting. You could use a combination of shooting and charging to kill it. Yeah, that's not terrible. And we can jump our guys out of transports now, and you can charge out of transports, although you're not charging quite as far. So you could do it. It's not optimal, but it's a possibility. I will point out the other side of things, which is that we can play this game too, guys. So the Karacnos is an AV-14 tank with 12 on the sides and rear. It has 7 hull points, which is less than a Land Raider, but it has the flare shield rule, which means that you never get armor bane against it. So again, if we're thinking about those numbers with las cannons, we're basically cutting the number of penetrations that we're getting in half. If you combine prime conveyor, that prime advantage from the macrotech detachment with fortify, you can get it to 14, 14, 12, which means that you're always hitting the armor 14 on the front, and you get 9 hull points. Real quick on the 9 hull points, and I mentioned this in another video that I'm recording today, but because the extra 2 hull points are in addition to your base hull points, you can't battle smith those last 2 hull points back. But 9 hull points is 9 hull points. This means that you need 80 las cannon shots if they're moving, and 45 las cannon shots if you're stationary to kill a Karacnos. So you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. And this tank kills things. The missiles out of the top are I want to say pinning. I'm going to look it up real quick. This is going to be some bad radio. They're very good. The las locks on the sides are also very good. They're 3-inch blasts with AP3. Sorry, lightning locks on the sides, and those also have suppressive, which is good. Yes, it's pinning 3 on the big gun. So if you do one unsaved wound, they're going to be phage toughness, so their toughness will be dropped forever, and and if you do one successful wound, that whether or not it gets saved, there'll be a pinning 3 test. So that's really good. This tank does work, and it's a little bit more annoying to not be able to kill one of these than it's going to be to kill a Land Raider. Also, as a note, the trios, the triaros, our conveyors, our transports, have the same stat line. So they also have 7 hull points. They're also AV 14, 12, 12. So you could, if you wanted to, make 2 of those armor 14 all round, or 3 of those, I guess, in the detachment armor 14 all round, and just shove them up the board at people and be like, you need to deal with these. Is it good? Probably not for the 200 points that they cost, but it's not bad. And you can drive up and try and put some pinning on things, and yeah, just try and be a nuisance. Block charge lanes, or block lanes that a Land Raider could take, if you want. But we can do this too. We can create very durable vehicles. So I have one slide after this, so stick around. Don't close the video. But in conclusion, I think AV14 is problematic. It's especially problematic for Mechanicum to deal with, and I think it's one of those things that we're going to have to fix as a community, like we did with Dreadnoughts in 2nd edition, where we're just like, whoa, don't bring 4 Land Raiders against me. Just don't do it. However, if somebody does, just ignore them. Just don't shoot them. Don't charge them. Don't do anything to them. They don't score. Deal with the guys that are getting out of them as fast as you can. But I wouldn't even waste your energy in that. You're not going to kill it. And yeah, it's not worth messing around with it. Mechanicum can play this game to some extent. I would be careful with the macrotech detachment. You talk to your opponent beforehand, because that's a lot of stuff to push through, and we can create some pretty durable tanks. Even the Karacnos can go to, I think it goes to armor 14 in the front armor, and then you can buff the side armors too with it. So it's still pretty durable for little tanks zipping around there. I just be aware that they're potentially unbalancing in the game, and sort of talk to your opponent before you play with them. I saw a post the other day. Somebody was talking about that, like, a lot of I guess Iron Hands lists are running lots of them with Terminators, and that's like, it's fluffy. Again, it gets back to that narrative idea that we talked about in our narrative video, where like it makes sense. Like it's a reasonably fictionally correct thing, but it's also potentially a really big bad feeling for your opponent if they can't deal with it. All right, we have one more slide that I got to talk about, and this is just in this discussion of armor breaking. We have a rule called Armor Breaker. I don't think anybody else has this rule. I haven't seen it anywhere else yet. And Armor Breaker X is, if you score a penetrating hit, you roll a d6. And if the result is equal to or greater than that value, you increase your damage by 1. Okay, so it seems okay at the surface. So if we talk about this, Castellix Destructors, they're BS3. They have Armor Breaker 4 up. So against armor value 12 weapons, vehicles, which is not great. That's like your Rhino size. 8.3% of the chance you get your bonus to damage. You get +1 damage 8.3% of the time with your guns, which seems bad. And against AV 13, you only get that bonus 4.2% of the chance because you have to score a penetrating hit beforehand. If we add guide, so you add all of your buffs, that goes to a whopping 11% of the time, which means that in most games, you won't get the bonus ever. And against armor value 13, it's 5.6% of the time. And I have a question for you guys. You can answer in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, send it to somebody who might like it, appease the machine god, offer incense, do all the things. But if you want to leave a comment, correct my math if I'm wrong, for one. But is this the worst special rule in the game? Because I think it is. I think it's the worst special rule in the game. If I hit and if I pen, then I have to roll a third dice. So I'm already rolling more dice, but no rerolls in this game, guys. But I roll a third dice. And if I get my bonus, I get this rule. Why doesn't it function like rending or breaching, where if I roll my penetration roll, right? Because that's the way I read it the first time. If I roll my armor penetration roll and I get a 4 up, I get my armor breaker roll. That's the way I thought it read. And I was like, that's great, because that's like the way breaching works. It's not. It's not. You have to roll another dice. And that basically makes it only work 50% of the time in this case. Anyway, that's it for today. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks very much. Bye.